Hi, folks. The Filipina here. And today I'm going to drop some truth bombs on a question most people just don't talk about. Will you ever be truly accepted in the Philippines? Or will you always be regarded as an outsider? Is it possible to fit in as a local? Or will we always see you first as a foreigner and forever treat you as a stereotype? What do we see when we look at you? Now, a lot of you are going to disagree with what I'm about to say, but I'm going to tell it like I see it through the eyes of a Filipino. Get ready for a big splash of cold hard truth. Now, first, let me explain what we mean by the term foreigner. A lot of you don't like that term, and it seems to offend some of you when we use it. But that's just the way it is. It's part of our cultural lexicon, and it's certainly not meant to be derogatory. Quite the opposite, most of the time. In your world, it would be insulting to refer to immigrants as foreigners. I get that, but it's accurate. And like it or not, it's just the word we use. No offense intended. When we say foreigner, we're usually referring to people from Western countries like the UK, the US, Canada, Australia, or Europe. And no, it doesn't necessarily mean a white guy. It's more about the culture you come from. You might also be referred to as an American, even if you're from somewhere else. That drives some of you nuts, some of you Brits and Canadians and Aussies out there. Because to you, it's obvious you're not American. But Filipinos aren't so great with geography, and since we have more contact with the US, you guys sometimes get lumped together. You might think that's culturally insensitive, and we should just ask where you're from instead of assuming. But Filipinos aren't very big on social graces either. I'm not here to say how things should be. I'm here to tell you how things are, and that's just how it is. But what about other Asians who live here? Why don't we call them foreigners? Well, for some reason, we call Koreans Koreans. We call folks from Japan Japanese. And people from India are Indians. I'm not really sure why, but again, that's just how it is. Now, this might be hard to understand when you come from a melting pot like the US, where you're used to seeing people from a lot of different ethnicities. And the sight of an Asian doesn't even raise an eyebrow. But even though we have so many different subcultures and dialects, we're a much more homogenous society. There are Filipinos, and then there are others. But it's only natural to use identifiers when you're referring to someone. And you guys even do it too. You might say, I was talking to that nice Vietnamese lady who runs the store on the corner. So, why did you first describe her as Vietnamese? Because it might have been the first thing you noticed. And that's often the way we talk about people: the tall guy, the fat lady, the Mexican dude, and in your case, the foreigner. But what if you've lived here for 15 years? I mean, come the hell on. Haven't you finally just become that nice man? Nope. You're always going to be the foreigner, no matter what you do. I guarantee you, if someone's referring to you when you're not around, the first words out of their mouth are going to be that foreign guy. Now, you might also get called Joe, which started back in World War II when we saw a lot of G.I. Joes from the US. You could be walking down the street and someone might wave and say, Hi, Joe. I know that offends some of you, especially non Americans, but it doesn't seem to bother most of you who understand the spirit of friendship that's intended. I heard from this one guy whose name really was Joe, and he was so amazed that they knew his name. And then it happened again, and he thought he must have been some kind of celebrity until a Filipino told him what was going on. But can you imagine if it was like that in your country and people waved to everyone with chinky eyes and said, Hi, Asian? Weird, right? Now, depending on where you go, you may also get stared at, especially out in the provinces where they may never have even seen a foreigner. People will come up to you and ask if they can touch your hair or pull your nose because they've just never seen anything like it except on TV. We don't mean anything by it. We're just trying to be friendly. But the problem is, it once again calls attention to your being different and reminds you that you're not one of us. Every time you get in a jeepney built for tiny Asians, everyone will be waiting to see if you bump your head. You probably will, by the way. And when you do, there'll be a round of laughter and smiles. We're not laughing at you, not exactly. We're laughing with you because we knew it was going to happen. but you'll still feel like an outsider, like you don't belong, and the joke's on you. When you go to the mall, you'll notice that everyone has to get their bags checked. You open up whatever you're carrying, and a guard takes a little stick and pokes around inside. I don't know exactly what they're looking for, and they never seem to find it. But when it's your turn, there's a good chance the guard will just wave you through because you're a foreigner. Sometimes this embarrasses you guys because it's obviously preferential treatment, but it's another example of how you're seen as different. Not everything goes in your favor, though. Go shopping at the market, and it always seems like the prices just doubled. Get in the taxi, and somehow the meter's not working. Get in a car accident, and you'll be the one at fault no matter what happened. As a foreigner, you're gonna be stereotyped as the rich guy, someone who can afford to pay. And if we can get that out of you, we often will. So, right off the bat, your looks are gonna put you in a certain category. And as a result, you're gonna get treated differently, sometimes better and sometimes worse. Not a good start if you think you're gonna blend in. A lot of you think that if you learn the language, maybe then you'll be accepted. But even when you think you're fluent, your heavy accent will almost always be noticeable. We smile and giggle when you speak it, not to laugh at you, but because we think it's cute and we're honored that you're trying, but it still marks you as an outsider. Now, there are certainly some foreigners that have learned a Filipino dialect almost to perfection, but those are few and far between. Our languages use words and sounds that are really hard for you to pronounce, and although it's easier than many other Asian languages, it's still no piece of cake. Now you might say, but P, you learned English pretty well, so why can't we learn Filipino? Well, I had a huge advantage. I've been learning English since I was 4. Our commercials are often in English. Signs are in English. They use English in all government proceedings. And English is frequently used in college courses. So, no wonder I can speak it. But it would take many years before you could speak Filipino without sounding like a foreigner. But okay, so what? So what if you're always going to be the foreigner? Does that mean you'll never fit in? Even if the rest of society treats you differently, the only important thing is the way your Filipina and her family treat you, right? If you show what a great guy you are and take care of their daughter, surely her family will accept you as one of the clan, right? Not exactly. Now, many of you are going to disagree strongly with what I'm about to say, but even within her family, chances are you're still always going to be the foreigner. When her mom talks about you to the neighbors, she'll say, my daughter and her foreign husband. When a childhood friend asks what became of your Filipino partner, her family will say, she married a foreigner. No matter what you do, the word foreigner will always be used to describe you. But this isn't to belittle you, it's actually a way of bragging. It's a way of saying, my daughter hit the big time. Aren't you jealous? Now, I'm not saying you're only going to be looked at as a prized pig or a valued resource, but the fact that you've married into the family often does give them a status boost. So I guess you're more like a prized stallion. It's not that they don't like you personally or even love and accept you, but let me assure you of something. We're still a very tribal people, and we care most about people from our own clan. No matter how you slice and dice it, you are not part of the clan, which is comprised only of blood-related relatives. If you and your Filipina have a baby, the child will instantly become part of the tribe. But you'll still be circling somewhere on the outside, looking in. Even a Filipino husband faces the same situation. He's from a different clan too, and is fully aware of a little saying we have here. Mapapalitan ang asawa, pero hindi ang pamilya. Which means you can always replace a husband, but not your family. Another way of reminding us that blood is thicker than water. Now, if a Filipino guy can be treated like a second-class citizen, what do you think your chances are? You don't speak our language. You don't follow our customs most of the time. You don't act like we do. And you don't even look like us. You're not part of the Borg collective, the hive mind, and you never will be. For some of you, that's actually a good thing. Trust me. But the degree to which you can assimilate really depends on what type of family she has. Some provincial clans where not a word of English is spoken, might have beliefs and a worldview that are so alien to you that it can make it virtually impossible for you to have any kind of meaningful relationship. Other families, typically affluent ones, might accept you much more quickly, and you'll actually find topics to discuss besides food and the weather. But in the end, you'll usually still just be the foreigner. Now, maybe that's a really cynical way to look at it, but I prefer to be a realist and tell you guys what's really going on here instead of blowing smoke up your butt. Now, some of you are probably shaking your fist at me and yelling about how much crap I'm full of. And in some cases, I'm sure what I just described doesn't apply to you. I'm glad her mom has a deep love for you and you've been completely accepted as a member of her family. But you're in the minority. Now, let me stress this does not mean you can't have a great relationship with your extended new family. But what I'm saying is, in their heart of hearts, a lot of families don't quite see it that way. You may think they do, and it's in everyone's best interest to make it seem that way. But if push comes to shove, you might find out a very inconvenient truth. Unless your Filipina's a total whack job, her family will almost always be on her side. But that's okay. A lot of people don't need or even want a close relationship with their in laws. The only crucial relationship is the one with your Filipina. So let's take a look at that. Will she see you for you and not just as a foreigner? Well, she's probably never going to relate to many of your ways, your obsession with being on time, your work ethic, or your logic. And you might be at an age where you're set in your ways. A man who prides himself on repaying his loans and always doing things by the book isn't likely to start doing things any other way. And she'll learn to deal with the differences as you smooth out the rough edges of your relationship. Very few foreigners come here and become totally Filipino, and there's nothing wrong with that. The good news is that after you being together for a while, you'll stop seeing each other as being different at all. You won't be the foreigner with the Asian. You'll just be a man and a woman in love. She might be the only one that makes you feel like you belong, but most of the time, that's all you need. You'll certainly be welcome here, and you might develop deep and lasting friendships, not only with her family members, but with people from the community, or maybe even with other expats. But if not, at least you'll have your Filipina. Now, to recap, I'm not saying not to come. I'm not saying you won't love it here. I'm not saying you can't find your place here. I'm not saying her family won't truly love you. What I am saying is that you'll always be seen as a foreigner, except by your mate. And as long as you can live with that, we can too. Well, that's it for this episode. And I hope you folks, enjoyed it. And I'll be back on Friday with something special. Till then, if you think about it, I'm kind of like Pocahontas, who bridged the gap between two very different cultures and tried to bring peace and understanding to both sides, while at the same time dating a foreigner. All that I ask for my diplomatic efforts is that you give a thumbs up on this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell. If you really want to be part of my tribe, check out my Patreon page for extra content and exclusive features. And while you're here, check out some of my other videos too. And no, you can't poke my hunters.